So what I would like to do now is introduce you to Sherry Baker. I'm not going to bring her on just yet. I want to give you a little background first. Sherry, as you probably know, from previous things I put in our newsletter and so on, has spent a long time with the Course in Miracles. She's a very, very advanced student, and A Course in Miracles has a lot of principles in it that are behind optimal EFT. I have not at this point delved into a lot of their details yet because they're really quite deep, and I wanted to establish some foundations first before I bring Sherry on and we start getting into in more detail some of these more in-depth concepts from A Course in Miracles. Sherry has been my friend for years. I also am very conversant with A Course in Miracles. It's hard to say who is conversant where and what kind of a ladder there is as far as who's the best at it and so on. I generally put myself in the upper 5 to 8% of those who study this material. I would put Sherry in the upper 2 or 3%. She's actually a mentor of mine. I'm often calling her and saying, I read this in the course and so, and what do you think about that? And she's, has a lot of answers and really knows her stuff here. Sherry also has a product she's done. Let me back up a second. Sherry is one of the few people, years ago when we had a certification program where we had some questions we asked and so on. She's one of the very few people who got 100% on our tests. So she knows EFT very well, and she's developed a product called Tapping into the Truth. It has a price attached to it and so on, but it's an excellent course, if you will, to take you from the tapping on into the Course in Miracles principles. So that little introduction, I am now going to unmute Sherry. And Sherry, if you would say hello.
Hello. I'm
there
here.
You are. Okay. Hi. Hello, everybody. This is Sherry Baker.
Hello.
Okay. I don't really, Sherry, have for us a curriculum for today. Other than I do want to talk with you a little bit about the course in general terms, because for most people who start with it, they get very confused. Sometimes they get irritated. Sometimes they throw their book away, throw it against the wall. I have fallen asleep reading it myself. And so let's talk a little bit about that so we can just sort of set that up a little bit, okay? So what is your take on that?
Well, when I first got the book, I opened it up and I started to read, and I think like you, Gary, I got maybe 3 paragraphs in, and I started to feel very tired, and aside from that, I didn't know what I had read. And I looked at it and I thought, these words appear to be in English. And I'm a reasonably intelligent person, but I cannot make heads or tails of it. And so I did, I think, what most people do, and I closed the book, put it back on the shelf where it sat very nicely and safely for several months. And then in another inspirational moment, I took the book off the shelf and I thought, I'll start again. And the same thing happened. I kind of nodded off. I did not know at the time what that was. We now know that it's this wonderful concept called resistance. And
I'm sorry. Let me interject a second. I too would fall asleep. But somehow or other, I would read it and I could not understand the words. They were there. They were English words. I could really, there wasn't anything I couldn't understand in that way, but it wasn't landing. And I now know, this is my view now, I didn't want to hear what it was telling me. That's the resistance you're talking about. It started to tell me that this world we're looking at isn't really there, and all the beliefs that I've attached to this world, are open to question. and so on. So I interrupted there, but I just wanted to put that little piece in. So go ahead.
Well, that's absolutely true. The resistance was so great, and I thought consciously, I really do want to know the truth. Subconsciously, I didn't, I wasn't ready, whatever it was, and that's where the nodding off came from. But just the way I am, you tell me I can't understand something, I'm going to work at it and read it as hard as I can. I read every book about the Course to help, make it seem a little bit more easily read. And one day, for some reason, I opened it up. I could read it and understand it, but then I only got maybe 3 pages before the nodding came.
Yeah.
And, I'm embarrassed to say, I guess it took me a year probably to get through it the first time, a year or 2. It took a while. I could only read in 3-page increments before I kind of got that funny haze that comes over you.
And it's 1,200 pages long.
Yes, yeah. So it's no easy read. It wasn't meant, I don't think, to be skimmed through. There's no fast lane to nirvana, as it turns out, and so I just kind of kept with it. I'm nothing if not perseverant.
Well, okay, let me interject here a second if I can, because I want to bring sort of a parallel with quantum physics. And this quantum physics is telling us very clearly that this world we see is an illusion. The Course in Miracles is telling us the same thing, but from a more spiritual angle rather than the scientific fact angle, okay? But quantum physics also tells us, as does the Course, that the world we see is a outer projection of an inner state, and it's not really there. To quote, I think it's Amit Goswami and his delightful Indian accent, there is no out there, okay? Now, quantum physics lays this down for us. It tells us the what of it, but it doesn't tell us what we can do about it. It doesn't tell us how to get there. It doesn't give us any roadmap about it. It just says, here it is. The Course, and that's why it is so integral in optimal EFT, gives us a bunch of principles that allow us to get there. And I just want to bring that little piece in, Sarah. So go ahead.
Well, I started reading and I read Only Love is Real, and I thought, I don't have a problem with that. My problem is everything else is illusion. If it isn't love, it isn't real. I feel very real. When I have aches and pains, those feel real. My landlord expects me to pay mortgage on the first of the month, and he thinks it's real. So that was, you kind of get into it, and it sounds pretty good, but I had a hard time with that. And, as I moved along with it, it felt better because I was getting more explanation, and it made more sense. But it's definitely a slow journey. One to be taken with a lot of patience. Yeah. And I think it's designed for that.
And the Course itself has 3 books, and the middle book is a whole series of lessons. It's workbook for students, it's called. And there's one lesson every day for 365 days. And I've been through those lessons many times. I'm still going through those lessons. And what's fascinating to me is, as much as I've been through not only the lessons, but the other material in the Course, every time I do it, there is yet another aha that goes on just about every page. And the thing is so brilliantly written that it actually, in a way, knows that we're only able to take just so much of it. And so we get a layer that's useful to us. The layer I get may be different than the layer you get, okay? But as we keep going, here come these different layers, and they're deeper and deeper. And after a while, we really start to see what's going on. And it is brilliantly written. It was scribed. I mean, the author, I don't know if people know this or not, the author of it is quite clearly Jesus. And it was scribed through a a Jewish lady by the name of Helen Schuckman, clear back in the 60s and early 70s, way back there. Some people object to the whole idea of Jesus. I'm not really pounding the table for Jesus. He happens to be the voice in the Course. I mean, you could call him anything. You could call him George if you wanted to. It's a message that's important in the whole thing. But anyway, anything more to say on that, Sherry?
Well, when you say who the author is, he himself says in the Course, it's not important to believe that it comes from me in order to appreciate its message. Yeah. So if that's a difficult concept, he of all people with no ego doesn't really mind if we don't believe it's him or not. So that's not really important. I find it really kind of neat because it adds a credibility to what is being said. And I like the idea of following the path of someone who's already been there very successfully. So it helps for me to know it's him, but it's not necessary.
And that brings you to an important point here. The Course, to me, and I've been at this now since '86, that's almost 30 years. Okay. The Course to me is a message from the other side telling us what it's all about. It's a necessary message. And if we didn't have that message coming in, we would continue on believing that all of this stuff in our bodies are supposedly born and supposedly die and supposedly get sick in the meantime, and so on and so forth. And I mean, we'd just be simply stuck with that, and all the political and relationship issues and financial issues and economic issues and stuff that permeates the world, the poverty and the disasters, all of that stuff, as well as the pleasures that go on. We would be stuck simply in that place and not be able to go out of it. Now, the other thing I want to point out is that we are using that other side, if you will, even without the Course so far, because we've done very little in these webinars regarding the Course. We are simply bringing in an unseen therapist, which is a representative of the other side. It could be God, it could be Jesus, it could be Holy Spirit, it could be higher source, whatever you want to call it. But we are doing that and that only and getting all kinds of results. So the point is we are getting big, solid, fat, undeniable clues about the power that it exists out there. And we have this brilliant document which is helping us along that way. And so, as time goes on, Sherry, you will be in this webinar. You'll have a voice. People say some things, have questions. You can bring the Course in Miracles into it. I may do it myself, etc. So that's how I would introduce you. Do you have anything else you want to point out at the moment?
No, I'm excited to go.
Okay. All right. What I'm going to do, Sherry, is leave you unmuted so that as we talk to other guests, other people ask questions and that kind of thing, you can chime in as you see fit. Okay. All right. Now, I want to introduce you to Helen Bressler, who I also mentioned on our email newsletter. And let me introduce Helen for you for a second. I was recently in Hawaii. Helen lives in Hawaii, and when I introduce her to you, you will notice almost immediately her delightful British accent coming from the Hawaiian Islands. She moved from that area of the world to Hawaii. I had breakfast with her while she was there and was telling me some fascinating stories, including getting over multiple sclerosis without going the medical route, and using what she didn't know at the time was optimal EFT principles, because optimal EFT wasn't even designed at that time. This was over 25 or 6 or 7 years ago, okay? But she was using those principles, and what I'm going to do is bring her on here in a moment, and any of you who have questions of her as she talks about this, please do. Helen is also, by way of introduction, one of my daughter Tina's stellar students, and has been certified at the absolute top levels in EFT. And she also has this really interesting spiritual thing. Helen, you're going to have to when I bring you on, you're going to have to correct me on this, but I think I have this right from our breakfast. I mean, you've had spiritual experiences from early on. I remember you telling me something about when someone would die, like at a funeral or something, you could actually see their spirit standing next to the body. I may have that a little wrong, so you can correct that if you want. But what you did with the optimal EFT principles with your multiple sclerosis is you had all those symptoms. You asked unseen therapists, which for you at the time was, you didn't call it unseen therapist. You were asking Jesus, that's who you thought for you would be the unseen therapist in optimal EFT terms. And as a result, you got messages, and as a result of that, the MS just flat out disappeared. Now, I think I said that right. Helen, I'm going to unmute you. Say hello to everybody.
Hello, everyone.
There
so
you are.
This is me with my British accent. This is not a Hawaiian accent. Do not be foiled. This is a British accent. I'm a Brit in Hawaii, so good to see everybody here today.
Okay, great. Now, how did I say that correctly about you at early ages being able to see?
Absolutely. Yeah, and I was one of those. I remember my very first experience of something other than this physical body being when I was around 7 years old, and I was actually in a bathroom. I didn't tell you this, Gary, but I was actually in a bathroom at school, and I was with friends, and I had this. I could see myself through their eyes, but I knew I didn't fit in the body, and what I was them, and I was aware of this energy, so to speak. I was aware of this presence which filled me, filled them, and filled what appeared to be the space in between us. So that was the first thing. But yes, I would see at funerals, I would see the person, the spirit of the person, but it was just the person standing by the coffin.
Well, let's go back to this thing where you can see yourself through somebody else's eyes, the space in between gets filled, and all of that. I mean, that is a direct evidence. I don't have that myself. I had something like that years ago in my spiritual experience, and I've heard others talk about things like that. But is that not a clear piece of evidence for the oneness of us all?
Oh, it absolutely is. And for me, I lived my life a little bit differently to the people that were around me, because when I described that experience, my friends thought, oh, there's something a bit odd with Helen, and teachers and parents couldn't quite describe it. But I never had a fear of death. I never had fear of certain things, because there was just, I know it just, I can't say that I knew it to be false. I just was aware of something else from early on, if I can put it that way. So I didn't. Mm-hmm.
Well, okay, well, go ahead.
I was going to say, so when we're going through those developmental stages, when friends, we're about 8 or 9 years old, and friends are saying, oh, the idea of death becomes real, as kids are starting to navigate the idea of death and possibility of not even permanence, but the absence of it, what that means, and the possibility of an absence of a parent. And I would just kind of shrug my shoulders and say, well, they're there, they're going to be there. I didn't have those fears, because I'd had evidence at my grandfather's funeral, my aunt's funeral, of the spirit being there. So the idea of death didn't really scare me or make me, make me concerned in any way, because hey, if one of my parents died, it wouldn't really mean anything to me. They're still going to be there.
Yes. Okay. So that gets you beyond the illusion in a way that most people listening in really don't have that experience of. Mm-hmm. Of course, somebody like you giving a talk to people who are newbies at this, they giggle at you. They go, there, Helen, pat you on the back and say, you'll feel better tomorrow, and all of that. They do that to me sometimes as well, So, but okay. The point is, you have had what for you are very convincing experiences of the oneness, the spiritual nature of things outside of this experience within a body. Okay.
Yes.
And yet at age, I believe it was 21,
21.
you developed multiple sclerosis with all the symptoms going on. Why don't you tell us first how severe the MS was?
I would quite often walk with crutches. I wasn't in a wheelchair yet, but I was told that I would be very likely in a wheelchair. I was going blind in my left eye. I would slur quite often. I was with my right eye, it would seem like I was looking through jello. So my vision was really affected. My cognitive skills were really affected. I kind of felt a bit depressed, kind of at the course. My gait was, I was very wobbly, in a lot of pain. It felt like somebody was kind of grabbing hold of, say, my arm, for example, and kind of twisting it in either direction, kind of doing that. And I would feel that with every muscle of my body. So I'd be in chronic pain. So not really able to think clearly, not being able to see very well. My gait was really affected. I was wobbly very often. I was often very numb, especially down one side of my body. I used to ride motorcycles and I would ride them, but both of my feet would be completely numb. I have no idea how I managed it. 21-year-old kind of brute force, sort of, so to speak. So it was affecting every part of me. And I actually, at the age of 23, I was actually pensioned off. I worked for the civil service and they pensioned me off at the age of 23.
Okay. So now at that time, there was no such thing as optimal EFT.
No.
EFT itself probably wasn't even born yet at that time. No. Okay. And so, but you were, the principle, the main principle of optimal EFT is we're inviting in what we're calling the unseen therapy. We're inviting in the other side. Jesus, in your case, okay? Mm-hmm. We're inviting in from the other side healing powers that are above and beyond what we can do in our more limited, separated state here, okay? And so, without knowing any of the details of what we're putting together as optimal EFT, if I get it right, and you correct me, you basically invited in Jesus, unseen therapist in this case, and for healing purposes. So tell us then, if I got that right, tell us what then happened.
Okay, so I like to think of it as, like with my experiences when I was younger, much younger, that this all happened despite me and despite my resistance and despite my ego and my real trying to hold on to things, because Jesus actually appeared to me. I started looking at my life. I started looking at the MS, made me stop to think. I started taking some steroids and it gave me nosebleeds, and I'd never had a nosebleed before, and that I put the rest of medication aside and said I need to look at something else. And I started to look and get trained in every kind of complementary therapy that I could. Whilst that was going on, I started to meditate, and one time Jesus actually appeared to me. And so the unseen therapist, there he was standing, and he was with no judgment whatsoever giving me a choice. And it wasn't a choice of, oh, have MS or not have MS. It was a choice of, you can go down sort of the way of the world and have those beliefs, or you can come with me. But it was very subtle. And so after that was very much then a how could I not then invite this therapist in to every aspect of my life? And I started looking, I looked at every area of my life.
Helen, let me I'm sorry, interject one thing. I want to clarify something. You said you were given a choice, a subtle choice. One is, I think you said, you can go this way of the world. I think that's the word you said. But I'm going to put that in our optimal EFT terms for a moment and see if it fits. You can go the way of the belief in separation. You can go the way of all this separate stuff and all the beliefs that happen there, and all the things that we are told by quantum physics, we are told by A Course in Miracles, etc., that is an illusion. So you can go the illusionary way, however convincing it may be, or you can follow me. And you were going to expand on that some, but follow me in my view, but you need to correct. Says there's a easier way to go about this. You can leave this other separated stuff behind and go into the real world. Now those are all my terms, okay? So, and that from an optimal EFT point of view is where I see it's happening. But shift that for me, or change it, or agree with it, or whatever you think is workable.
Right. And and I want to make it clear for everybody that it was an amazing experience, and it was like layers. You're absolutely right, Gary. And it was a very slow process. It was layers of the onion being undone. And when I say I was looking at different areas of my life, I was looking at the different aspects of my life, looking at where I was in pain, what I was holding on to, different experiences. And with each one of those, lifting those and asking basically for Jesus's help to relieve me of those experiences as they were coming up, because it didn't all kind of happen at once. It was over time.
Well, let me interject there now. You said these experiences, and those are things in EFT terms I might call or label specific events in your life.
Yes.
So basically, now I'm trying to put this in optimal EFT terms, but and I recognize that it wasn't even around at this time. But if I got it right, what you were basically doing is saying, I've had this experience where I was angry at this person or guilty about that or whatever the case may be, and I've been carrying all this around. What do we do about this unseen therapist? And so unseen therapist comes in, Jesus in your case, and somehow or other that gets resolved. And then there's another one, and then there's another one, and then there's another one. And as that resolves, your MS symptoms improve?
Yes, it's like as those, if I can call them aspects, for want of a better word, of those aspects and events, specific events are being lifted, so are the MS symptoms being lifted. I'm also feeling, of course, much more at peace. I'm also questioning then the idea, the more that everything's lifting, the more I'm questioning my purpose. I'm questioning the world, so to speak, and my kind of a place in it. And that's where I started to also see the possibilities. We look at the palette of possibilities, but I'm seeing the possibilities. I'm seeing the potential that up until that kind of point I've not seen before. I've got this diagnosis and this is the prognosis. But now as these specific events are being lifted, and I can even call it my grievances are being lifted and taken from me, that I'm seeing much more of a possibility for myself and for my life and for something beyond that.
Okay, and as I understand it from our previous conversation, all symptoms of multiple sclerosis, MS, vanished as a result. Do I also remember correctly that the doctors and their various tests could find no trace of it? Remember that right?
Yeah. I want to, this is wonderful because I want to bring in a couple of what I think are really important points here. And that is, number one, that I had a series of MRIs in the last 12 months. And my neurologist is kind of the best in Hawaii, and I think one of the best in the United States. And he said to me, not only is there no sign of current activity, of progression with MS, there's no sign of any activity. With your brain, there's no sign. There's just no sign of it. And he commended me for going the not Western medical route, So he was very excited about that. I want to say something else as well, though, that even though there's two things here, that even though there was no sign of progression or of any activity, at points in my life when I'm under severe stress, when I'm feeling separate, when I'm doing this, and deeming myself as separate, then I can sometimes regain some symptoms or experience some symptoms, but I no longer term them. I can term the symptoms, oh, they are MS symptoms, but I no longer have that link that, oh, I have MS, therefore this is part of that. It's, this is more my Achilles heel or my barometer. This is a way to tell me that I'm out of peace or out of sorts with myself. I'm seeing myself as separate. I'm experiencing a symptom. I now have a solution in a world where there are no true solutions.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, and that goes right along with my own experiences on all of this. Okay. Okay. I want you to stay on here for a second, Helen, because I want to bring up Gabrielle Rutten here for a moment. And Gabrielle, I'll unmute you in a second. Gabrielle is a medical doctor in the Netherlands she's been on our webinar here before. Delightful, very competent lady, very, very good at EFT itself, and has been using optimal EFT more and more and more with her clients. She is, if I remember our recent conversation correctly, doing a sort of study of sorts with, I think it's over 100 MS patients using optimal EFT and maybe some other things, I don't know. But I told her you were going to be on here, and she has some questions, or she probably has some questions for you. And by the way, anybody else that's listening in who has questions for Helen or Sherry, or for that matter, Gabrielle, please raise your hand, and we'll get to you as time allows. So right now, Gabrielle, I'm unmuting you. Say hello to everybody.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for unmuting me, Gary.
Okay. So you are on now. Well, actually, you're on with Sherry and with Helen.
Yes.
And so if you have questions of either one of them, I think you have them of Helen, fire away.
Okay. Thank you so much. Yes. So thank you, Helen, for sharing your story. And I do have a few questions. I've been doing workshops with about EFT with MS patients for 2 years now. And these are patients that are looking at resolving the whole problem of MS in an alternative way. Mm-hmm. So they're really interested in finding ways to go about this. And you're an experienced EFTer, and you just told us that there is many specific events that you call it, they lifted off, or what did you say?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that they lifted off, yeah.
So there's no charge anymore on any specific event that you have?
Not that I'm aware of currently.
So basically, would that be similar to saying you've done your personal peace procedure and it's done, it's completed?
I've worked through the yes, in one sense, I've worked through the personal peace procedure. And I think there's always something to add on as we go through the personal peace procedure and we go through life in 2015 in this seeming planet and this seeming busyness, that there's always something that seems to get added onto the list. So I am not grievance free. I would love to say, oh, I am totally grievance free. But it's interesting how I can find myself out of peace and something might bubble up. There might be a fear or an idea somewhere that might bubble up, and it might be something that I've taken on or created for myself right now, or it might be linked to something, an event in the past that I wasn't previously aware of. that is still within my physical system. Does that make, hopefully that makes sense.
That makes perfect sense. That makes perfect sense, because I have quite a few clients, and one of my best friends has MS, and she's really diligently working away on her personal peace procedure, and not too many results as of yet. So I was wondering, while working on your personal issues, are there some emotions that stand out, emotions like shame, or maybe did you discover anything there?
There's 2 points that I really want to bring up that I think are really important. In optimal EFT, we talk about guardian at the gate, and we talk about that being the child within us, the one that wants to be right. For me, what I noticed that not only was I wanting to justify this, but what I saw was, this so wonderfully demonstrates the idea of separation. I had people around me who would see the MS before they would see me. So I became, when I was in my 20s, Helen with MS. Or people say, how's the MS doing? So I became, it's like the identity. I was no longer Helen, oh, and I happen to have this thing that I'm working on. It was MS emboldened, like this big, and that became the neon sign with me hidden somewhere behind. And so navigating through that for me was very important. And the other thing too that I noticed when I told because I was excited about the MRI results, and I told some people that I'd known for like 30 odd years, 20, 30 years, the results, that the question came up of, oh, did you really have it in the first place? So I found myself then justifying my position of, well, yes, I had it was the definitive diagnosis, my spinal, my cerebrospinal fluid, it was definitive diagnosis, the symptoms, the diagnostic test, absolutely. So I found myself then justifying an old idea of pain that I'd once experienced. I think that, together with seeing others that not lock you into that position, but what are the people around and how am I responding to those people around? Because I then became, I think, defensive. I had to justify almost my existence in the world, so to speak, and I had to justify my position as being here and the MS, justifying the MS, even though it was no longer an issue for me. But there's that sense of justifying, and that still pops up. That's still something that, when it gets knocked off my personal peace procedure, there it is back on the bottom there. That is a work in progress, and I recognize that.
Yeah.
And I think that's helpful.
If I may, let me interject a second here. Thank you, Helen, for that. I want to say something before this thread gets lost in there. This whole bit about using the personal peace procedure and going to the specific events and unraveling those, and therefore our MS our symptoms start to fade, is an echo of the tapping form of EFT. We can certainly do that with EFT and do it. And the success rate with MS patients varies all over the place. In some cases, the MS patients don't, after they start getting some results, they don't want to do it anymore, because that means they may have to get out of their wheelchair and start working. They got secondary gains, okay, and stuff like that. But what I want to point out is, if I get it right from what Helen did, is she called on the unseen therapist, again, in her case, which will address these specific events, not with the mechanical tapping, but rather with a deeper motivation, and that is the underlying motivation, the the big kahuna, the big thing we're trying to get at here is undo the belief in separation. And that gets addressed, and that's the underlying cause of all of these other issues. That's one thing we're trying to put forward in optimal EFT. It's the underlying cause, yay, 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 pound the table, and all of that. So when we bring in unseen therapists, we are likely getting deeper results than we do with the tapping form. That's the one point I wanted to make. And I'm sorry for interrupting you, Gabrielle. Please go ahead.
No, that's fine. I mean, that's obviously the transition that many of us probably are in, going from personal procedures and very specific events, looking for them ourselves, into letting unseen therapists do the thing. So if I may, Helen, another question. You noticed that your guard at the gate was keeping you back. Do you have tips for people with MS? How did you go about, you know, reassuring the guard at the gate, or making sure that she probably stepped back, and so the process could happen? You understand what I'm trying to look at?
I totally see that. And for me, one of the biggest things that I did was I projected that guard at the gate, or the guardian at the gate, almost outside of myself. And I had this plethora of individuals who would see the MS before seeing me. So that for me was the part of that guardian at the gate. And it was, I don't want to use the term surrender, but that was certainly saying, help, I need help with this. And it was coming from a place of, I don't want to use the term expectation, perhaps a tiny bit of faith, perhaps a tiny bit of openness, but I know that even that can be given. I was coming from a place of, I wasn't coming from a place so much of desperation and hopelessness. I think I was coming from a place of frustration, but it was certainly asking, in my case, Christ, asking the Christ to say, you know, saying, hey, this is, I don't understand this. This is not comfortable. I don't know how to navigate this. And I need help with this. Okay.
And is it possible for you to tell us a bit more about what the help looked like? Were there advices, or what were you changing in the way you went about your life in order to, you know, be not stressed out about stuff, about not being upset about things? What changed?
I would be asking for help very often, and I'd be very often in my mind. I'm going to shuffle around on my chair so I can do that a bit. My mind, I think, was in a place of saying help and thank you, help, thank you, help, thank you, help, thank you. There's also just that appreciation for an idea and the possibility of knowing that Christ, for me it was Christ, but that there was a solution where I was not really seeing a solution at all. There was an opening, a possibility, and for that, oh my gosh, it was not of this world, and there was a great relief in that. So my mindset was help and thank you, help and thank you, help and thank you. And I tend to bring in Christian vernacular because that's what works for me. So for me, I would say things like, you said you tear down the temple and rebuild it in 3 days. I'm leaving it up to you. I'm putting it in your hands, in your hands, in your hands. Help. Thank you. That was my mindset. Help. Thank you. In your hands. Help. Thank you. And then there was an idea of trust, of, well, I've handed it over. I've handed it over. I've handed it over.
Yeah, and let me, thank you, Helen. Let me interject here a second, if I may. This bit about handing over, it's one thing to just say that academically. Oh, yeah, here, just take it, okay? I mean, you can say it academically. It's another thing to actually mean it and to own it. And for those listening in, there comes a stage after you have practiced this more and more and more and had your own ahas and spiritual experiences, and they gradually build and start giving you more confidence in it and more trust, etc. That's when you can do this more and more and more, and your results get better and better and better. But that all gets down to the practice piece of this. Now, Helen, you have somehow from early ages just sort of fallen into seeing yourself through other people's eyes and seeing, spirit next to deceased bodies and other things like that. You've had these experiences. You have a foundation on which to build this trust, which others have not had yet.
Mm-hmm.
So it's practice and practice. That's one reason we do these webinars, so that we can all learn from somebody who's been there and get another little piece of, aha, yes, this is working, this can work for me, and here's another little piece I can add to my own trust foundation. Let me ask Sherry. Sherry, I'm sure you've got a thought or two on this, do you?
Yes, I do. I didn't want to interrupt, so but I would love to point something out before we lose the thread. There's a principle in the Course that says, I need do nothing. And when I first read that, I thought, what does that mean? I just sit around on the couch and do nothing? What it means is, I need do nothing except choose the right teacher in any given moment. We are always at choice. That's what the Course says. And so I just love how Helen said, I saw Jesus and he gave me the choice. Do I wish to go the way of the world, which would be the way of the ego, the way of the guard at the gate? Or he said, do you wish to follow me? And she made that choice to go with the right teacher, be it Jesus, Holy Spirit, or unseen therapist. He then lit the way for her. He didn't do anything for her. He kind of lit the way for her to look at things that were coming up into her conscious awareness. And she made choices about what worked for her and what didn't, what she wanted to let go. And so as she did that, she was healed. And she said that she would occasionally get little reminders, like, things that looked like the MS was coming back, but she again chose the right teacher on how to look at it. She looked at it from a much higher perspective, and she said, this is not a bad thing. This isn't MS coming back. This is a barometer to show me what it is that I need to still look at and clear. And so she saw the symptoms in a positive way, which would be the way of unseen therapists, to look at it from a much higher, more positive place. Yeah. So she just followed what the Course says so beautifully. I really applaud that.
Yeah, one of the things we're trying to do with optimal EFT, as well as the Course, is to begin to get more and more into getting our advice from outside this very separated world. And the more, one of the nice things about bringing in unseen therapists for these physical issues, and we tend to get some physical results with things that sometimes are astonishing, is we begin to get more and more comfort with that, so we are more and more gradually inclined to not go with our own egoic decision-making process, but rather go to a higher source, etc. And that's kind of what that's all about. I'm curious, Helen, and I'm going to rephrase, I think, Gabrielle's question to you. How does this advice appear? I mean, it's like unseen therapist saying, now hear this, and gives you an exact bullet point list of things to do. Does it appear in the form of a notion? How does it show up?
Perfect. That's absolutely perfect. And we experience things, don't we, somatically. We experience things very physically. And so the first thing I think that that the advice, so to speak, would show up, or the change would show up, is that I would feel a sense of peace. And I tend to feel it, boom, in my manipura, in my this chakra here. and I tend to feel it very much so in my kind of stomach area, but I get a sense of peace, and a sense of, Sherry, you said I need do nothing. There's a sense then of relief, and the relief and the peace just kind of comes through. It's not a huge wave washing over me. It's a subtle, oh, I'm not really thinking of that. I'm not really concerned about that. I can just carry on kind of doing what I'm doing. But suddenly some decisions might be kind of changed for me, and it might be even, say, very subtle in what I choose to eat or what I choose to think about. It can just be very subtle. It's almost as if it's done for me. And there are some times that I've just been, something's been brought to my attention that I'll have reframed for me. So a way that I was previously thinking will be reframed, and it will have been reframed for me.
And another example I'm thinking might be, this is the kind of thing that I would experience, okay, is that if I am irritated or angry at somebody or something, and that is causing a physical thing with me, I may find that somehow or other this person or this thing, it's just not that big a deal anymore, and it just sort of went poof, or it got substantially reduced, and it's more of a shrug of the shoulder. It may still irritate me a little bit, or maybe it's just all gone, that kind of thing. Would that be an example of what you're talking about?
That's a perfect example, and I've experienced it quite recently with some colleagues of feeling irritation and feeling symptoms in my leg with that. Very interestingly, it's ongoing kind of a confrontational relationship. And what occurred there when I started to say, I need help with this. This is kind of abhorrent because I'm out of peace, and I recognize I'm out of peace, and it's kind of becomes more painful in a sense as we recognize that more and more. And very soon I found that I was looking at others, so to speak, as knowing conceptually that there's no separation, but the experience was that this is another person, and yet there was now a sense of compassion. And so my interaction with this person that I was having was not one of irritation. I felt compassion for them.
Yeah, one of the things that comes up for me often with irritating people, at least from my point of view, they are irritating, is that, and it's an echo from the Course, that basically says people are doing one of two things. They are either exhibiting love or they are calling for it. And the various things that irritate me are actually my projections on them. It doesn't seem like, I would do those things, but I have that same potential. And I'm actually seeing stuff I don't like about me in them. Okay, and it's that kind of thing that starts to get settled. And when those things get settled, then whatever physical thing I may be experiencing starts to settle as well. Okay. Now, Gabrielle, did you have other questions? Because we can also go on to as others are raising their hands. Go ahead.
I'm fine for now. Thank you so much.
Oh, okay, great. Now, I'm seeing here, this is someone I had correspondence with, Dr. Isabel Reis, R-E-I-S. I'm going to unmute you. Say hello to everybody, okay?
Hi.
Hi. Say a couple more things so we can see you.
Yeah. Yes, I've been recently just introduced to the optimal EFT, although I've been doing a lot of EFT over the last few years. And it's very interesting because my very first experience was with a multiple sclerosis patient. And it was a morning and I was sitting there and I'm saying to him, could I do something a little bit strange? And we've built a trust relationship because the very first time he came to me, he only came to me because his wife almost threatened him and cried, and eventually, because he loves it very much, he came through to me. And and I did what I normally do. I run energy through my hands. I use machines and everything else, but my biggest change for people have been running energy and just letting it be. and he got a huge relief after the very first session. And so the trust was built, and this very specific morning I had done optimal EFT, the course, and I finished it up at 5 o'clock that morning because it was one of those things that I really realized that there was truth in it, and there was a recognition of an enlightenment in my life when it came to this process. And so he was the first patient, and I said, I hadn't seen him for about 3 weeks. His feet really were pretty bad that morning, and he doesn't believe in anything. So he just said, do your little woo-woo things, and he carried on playing on his phone. And so I was having this conversation, trying the EFT. It was really difficult because I constantly want to be in control of things, and I want to tell optimal therapists where to go and what to do. But eventually I got to a place of real deep peace, and it was maybe 2-3 minutes, and I said to him, how do your feet feel? And he says, pain's gone. And then about a week later, I did another session on him. The pain had come back, but not as bad. And I had a very incredible experience where I felt like I had a swirl of smoke. And I said, you know, his dad had passed. And I said, did your dad ever smoke? And he said, yes. And I said, well, it's somehow there's guidance that said the love stopped here. And it was when he was 12, his dad passed. Nobody told him. I never talked to nobody. Well, he heard about it somehow, but it was never talked about. And he could not, in my entire experience of him, he could not emote. Doesn't want to go back to emotions, doesn't want to deal with it. And I found it very, very difficult. And I'm starting to realize that when I'm working with patients with MS, with lupus, there's almost an inability from my experience of wanting. They don't have the energy. They don't have the power to go back to emotions. So I'm taking over the role because there's no separation of them. And I wanted to ask, you know, Helen, if that was the case with you as far as emotions are concerned, because when somebody doesn't know how to get into, because there's no specific events that they want to deal with, there's no hatred, rage, or whatever, you know, I would obviously like to, you know, this is doing pretty okay, but I'd like to really open up something a little bit more for these patients. So how do I go to specific events? How do I go to emotional things if they're not there?
Well,
wanting to go there.
You asked Helen, but let me give you my own thoughts here first, if I may, and then Helen can chime in. Now, I will point out one thing, Isabel, if you can put different lighting on your face, because your face is very dark on the screen, etc., it would be
early morning in Melbourne, but I've got another light. I'll try and get it.
Okay, well that was a little better a minute ago. But anyway, let me comment on that. There are oftentimes clients can't come up with their specific events, or they don't want to come up with their specific events and stuff like that. So we have ways of within the EFT process where we make up a specific event if they can't find one they've requested or something like that. Okay, but I also found with unseen therapists that even though we are unable in some of these cases to get down to specific events, unseen therapists is a lot smarter than we are, knows all the stuff that's going on anyway, and gets down in there and somehow resolves this stuff. I've seen a lot of stuff happen that I thought would take session upon session upon session with the tapping form of EFT to do it meticulously and well, get done in 5 minutes or one session or something like that. Okay, so that's just my little input. Helen, did you have she asked you that question, Helen. Do you have a thought?
I agree with you, Gary, and I think it's the wording. We look at wording and asking, and it could just be, you know, asking the unseen therapist to assist where we find ourselves at right now. Where are we right now? And to hand over from where I am right now, help with that. I need some assistance with that.
Yeah, and to add to that, lost my train of thought. It will come to me in a moment. All right. Did you have anything else you wanted to add to that, Helen? I'm sorry.
Well, I think you're absolutely right in regards to the unseen therapist has a much greater view, so to speak, of what's going on for us individually. So whether the person is actually aware or not of what's going on, or is but is at a place where they're unable to voice that, then again, where I'm at right now, then I'm asking for assistance with where I'm at right now, and having that I want to say willingness, but just that the tiniest openness, just to say, with where I'm at right now, I need assistance, because am I feeling peace and just peace right now? Am I at peace? And if the answer is no to that, then I can ask the unseen therapist for assistance with that, and they will know what it is that needs to be worked on.
Yeah, and I now remember what it was I was going to say. The unseen therapist is actually limited not only by the limitations of the therapist, that is how well they are stuck in this belief in separation, etc., but also those of the client. Now, if neither the client or the therapist had any resistance whatsoever, it's just a wave of the hand and everybody's fixed forever. It's because of these resistances on our guard at the gate that we have these problems. And that's why I bring in the importance of these aspects, these specific events, all these details. It isn't that unseen therapists can't come in and do things with it. It's because sometimes, metaphorically speaking, the guard at the gate, our belief in separation, our ego, wants to hide these things. And if it does, if we want to hide these things, then unseen therapists can't get there. But if we can take them conversationally, reframing-wise, etc., and put them on the table, now they're not hidden. And now we have them in clear sight, and they're easier to get a hold of. And so that's my little belief in separation, but really belief in oneness kind of input on this as to why we want to get details. Okay. So.
Gary, can I say something?
Indeed.
Okay. That's one of the things we like to do in this physical world. We like to control. We like to figure things out. That's kind of an ego thing. We're going to get into the details and figure it out ourselves. The Course is always saying, I will step back and let him lead the way. So if I'm sitting with a client who says, I can't think of a specific event, I will remind them that fortunately there's a higher power, whatever you wish to call it, unseen therapist, Holy Spirit, who does know what all the events are. And if you are open and you have a little willingness, we can get quiet right now and do, some optimal EFT. And if you're willing to just be open to hear whatever you hear, something is likely to occur to you that you may not have thought of before. So always try to just step back and try to stop figuring things out and just let Holy Spirit, unseen therapists, guide the way.
Great. Thanks, Sherry. Isabel, did you have anything more you wanted to add?
No, I think what I am doing nowadays is now I am, because from that time I've probably seen about 40, 50 people. And so I'm learning to let go of the control, and I am now running and stepping back into nothingness and just letting it happen. And it's getting better. But thank you. Yes.
Okay.
That's very useful.
Isabel, I may want to, I know you have to get up you're in Melbourne, Australia, okay? And
yes.
You have to get up very early for this, but I may want to have you on another time, because you've sent me some emails with some rather astonishing things that you've been experiencing with this. I think it's worth everybody seeing. One of them was, and this is a little on the woo-woo side, if I got it right, you were able to lift somebody with your fingers.
130 kilos.
Say it again.
130 kilo man lifted off the bed.
Yeah, and you did it with your fingers.
Yeah, just holding the energy. Okay. It's just holding the energy.
Okay. Well, that gets into in-depth stuff, and we will save that for another time. That and other things you have, but maybe next time or another time, if you're willing, we will spend some time on what you're doing. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Isabel. Okay, Dorothea had a question.
Two. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you fine, Dorothea.
Well, one isn't a question, but it's my way of dealing with how we invite resolution, because somehow I would get stuck in that. And I came to a place where when I ask for resolution through whoever, however, whatever, I say, I also ask for guidance and support for accepting and awareness and participation in the resolution. And somehow that helps me to get more solid with asking, receiving, and knowing.
And I was just listening to your words. You were talking about participating in, and
yes.
I don't really know what was actually meant by that, because different things can happen. But let me comment on that on a second. Participating and working together is, I mean, that's where love comes in, because it's not a solo thing. It's a joint thing. Okay. The other thing, and somebody might suggest, is, well, you don't need to participate because that means you are in this, putting your control in it. You need to surrender and let them do it. Okay. Now, different people have different views on that. I just want to point out that point. Depends on what's meant by participating, etc. But our egos tend to want to control. We want to kind of do it our way because we're used to that way, and we're comfortable with that way, etc. And it takes a little effort and a little more trust, like we've been talking about in practice, before we allow somebody a lot smarter than we are to really influence everything.
Yeah, that isn't the, I don't think that's the place where I come from when I ask, when I say I want to participate in it. I feel a responsibility kind of thing to be accepting and aware, and the participation kind of comes in that place.
Well, however it works, I just point that out because we have lots of people listening in, and they hear things differently and so on. Yeah. Okay, anything more, Dorothea?
Yes. The second one is, my big overall is working with my adult autistic son. And when we are talking about things like MS and or another area that I have concern with for another friend, the mind one that I can't remember right now, but it's a huge issue in the Western model. And each of these larger issues, autism, and somebody help me, where people gradually lose their memories and
Alzheimer.
Yes, amen. At any rate, with each of these, how I'm watching what each of you others who are working with the MS people are doing, but how does one work with another when one is not a therapist, but very intimately involved? I'm with my autistic son and my Alzheimer's friend. How do we do surrogate work in a way that is beneficial for lifting these places? And I'm not even sure autism has to be lifted. I keep thinking autism is showing us something. But now I'm going to be quiet and thank you all.
Well, let me comment on that if I can, Dorothea, because I've had a lot of experience with surrogate work, both tapping surrogate work as well as optimal EFT. from optimal EFT point of view, I would just simply get very quiet if I were you. And I know my own son's history. I know specific events that may well be bothering him. I know whether he tends to be mostly angry or mostly guilty or mostly this, that, or the other thing.
Mostly gone.
Mostly what?
Gone to another level, it seems to me. He
Okay.
checks out.
Okay. So there's something in there that isn't quite right. And so the thing to do is to be, what I would do is I would be quiet. Since I'm not able to identify this well, or to the extent I can identify, I'll just be quiet and identify what I can. But I get very quiet. I imagine myself to be my son. And I bring in the unseen therapist to bring in that whatever needs to be in that healing. Now, what's interesting about this, and I think Sherry can probably tell us a story here too, is that we often want to judge, evaluate how well this works by some physical measurement or some other thing that we can measure from within our separated state. We want to see different behaviors. We want to see pains go away and this kind of thing. Whereas,
I want to connect with him. I want to connect with him at those other levels.
okay, so you're wanting that connection, and that's how you would measure it. Now, unseen therapist comes in and knows more about this than you and I know. Okay, I'm going to give you a story Sherry told me once upon a time. She was doing EFT with a client of hers who had a back pain, if I recall it right. And this is the tapping form years ago. And it's the kind of thing where the back pain should have gotten better or gone away or whatever. It's fairly routine for skillful EFT. But it didn't budge, it didn't budge, it didn't budge, it didn't budge. And what happened was she went instead to a chiropractor who then took care of her back pain. She ended up marrying the chiropractor. There was an important relationship in her mind. Unseen therapist knows about this.
Okay.
Okay. Now, is that an exact thing? Could that be coincidence? I've seen too much of it to say it's all coincidence, but I'm just pointing that out as an example. So whether or not you see this connection right away may have something to do with you, it may have to do with him, etc. But nonetheless, the effort at love, sitting down and being in love with your son, connected with your son, bringing an unseen therapist to help there, is likely to move something in some direction, and that connection may be measurable by you.
Thank you.
Okay, all right. Thanks, Dorothea. Tay Corby, you and I talked this morning. I'm going to unmute you. Say hello to everybody, would you, Tay?
Hi, Gary.
Hi. Hi. Okay, so we had this discussion this morning, and you said you were using EFT surrogately for your son, right?
Yes.
Okay. Dorothea may be interested in this. Why don't you tell us what happened?
Okay. My son is about 2 months into a PhD program, really struggling with acclimation. He's about 3,000 miles away. It's a very rigorous program. And he's been complaining about neck pain, high anxiety, and an inability to sleep. And as I was talking to him, I was just doing conversational EFT. He had no idea. I was also remembering my own academic challenges and feeling really bad about that in the conversation. So I thought that maybe that could be in some way contributing to his acclimation or his learning. And I just got quiet, invited the unseen therapist, and started feeling into what he might be feeling and connected with his anxiety, while at the same time I was inviting help for my own blocks to it. because I couldn't actually feel him because I was feeling inadequate myself, that I would never even put myself in that kind of position. So there was a lot going on, but the intention was to give that up into the unseen therapist for the purpose of helping my son, who really had no idea what was going on. I left, I ended the conversation, and for the rest of the week, I've spent lots of time tuning in at different intervals throughout the day, feeling him, feeling into that anxious state, asking unseen therapists for assistance, and connecting to things that were showing up at the time. I was also seeing that I had a lot of blocks to opening up to love. I still have, I have a lot of blockages around that. I have a lot of guards at the gate. There's a lot of characters in there. But as I became aware, I just kept turning it over a lot. I feel like that's part of this initiation for me, because I do have a sense. I have experience, and I have a sense of that peace and that freedom and that relaxation. So I work towards getting to that place, and then I focus on my son. I spoke to him yesterday, and he told me that he had about 4 or 5 nights sleep that were uninterrupted, and that for the most part, I was feeling a cognitive shift in him. I just felt his energy brighter. He was more relaxed, but he said something, and he had no idea that I was, doing anything. And another comment I wanted to make is that my husband said this morning on a hike that he has noticed a 15% uplift in me in the last 2 weeks. And that was, kind of like just an unannounced, like what's going on kind of thing. So something is happening.
So is what you're saying is in the background, this is a great marriage therapy?
I don't think it can hurt. I don't think it can hurt. And I started reading, I picked up actually the Course in Miracles, which I was introduced to in 1977 and kept putting it back on the shelf since then. But now it feels like I'm more able to grapple with some of the dense text. It's wild.
Actually, it appears to be dense, but the more you read it and the more you get behind it and start understanding it, it's as clear as it can be. It couldn't be any more clear. It's just that like we said before, we just don't want to hear it, and so it it takes quite a bit, but it's a brilliant, absolutely brilliant document. But I can't tell you how many people take that book and throw it across the room, at first.
To stand it.
I have a question for Sherry, if I may, and that's a rather technical one, I guess. We are reading the Course in Miracles, volume number 3, third edition, something or other, and I heard a discussion about that text has been edited quite a bit, and that there is a original text or urtext, I don't even know how you pronounce that in English, that has more text to it, and there's some subjects skipped in the volume, in the third edition that I'm reading, and I'm just curious to hear Sherry about this, what her take is on which version to read.
Okay, Gabrielle, I'll do the best I can. You mentioned the text. There were earlier texts than what most of us are able to purchase in a bookstore now. And from what I understand, these earlier texts include a lot of conversation that Jesus had with Helen and Bill, the scribe and her associate. And it was felt that those additions should be taken out, that was more personal between Jesus and them. And so that was taken out. The text that I think is most recommended now, I think it's the second edition. I think that's the one I have. And I personally, even though those earlier texts, the earlier texts have more information in them, I feel like if that's the one that the author, Jesus, wanted to put out into the world, that's the one that would be out there. And so even though I own it, I don't really look at it all that much. I more look at the one that was brought to the world by publication. So that's the one I would suggest you read. If you have an interest, you can go back and read the others and see what he said to Helen and Bill. But because he didn't seem to want that, I kind of taken that as word and just read what did get published. In the second edition, I'm not aware of the third.
Yeah, well, there's some question about that, but let me comment there. The revisions that were made, yes, they took out. I mean, first of all, there were some revisions because it was just when it was scribed down, it was all done word by word by word, but there weren't any paragraph changes and chapter headings and things like that. So it had to all be redone that way, all asking the author, the voice, Jesus, you know, how to do all of this. And so the one that ended up that where most people are using it is the one done by the Foundation for Inner Peace. Foundation for Inner Peace. You can find them on the internet. That is by far the biggest one. That's the one that's being translated into 20 some odd languages and so on. The other thing I want to point out about that is while there is some minor revisions that occur in the course, compared to the Bible, which started off in an Aramaic language, I can't tell you how many centuries ago, and then got changed into different languages and got adjusted by different kings and monarchies and all the stuff that went on. What we're now reading today, we're not sure, in the Bible sense, we're not sure how accurate that really is from where it really began, number one. Number two, the little revisions that occurred in the course are minor compared to that. I just used that second edition, the one by the Foundation for Inner Peace, the one that everybody else uses. And while I have the others myself, the same message is there regardless. So anyway, that's my piece on that. Okay, let me see. Cheryl and Howard.
Hi, nice to see you again.
Hi, dear.
Great. Howard and I have been doing some very exciting reading. I think I've mentioned to you before, I got involved with the Course in Miracles back in the 70s, I think, which guided me into a 14-year law enforcement career, and that I had even asked the lady who came from the Course in Miracles Institute or whatever, why God would answer me with telling me to go into law enforcement to be a peace officer. And she gave me a wonderful answer that overcame my fears about even walking out the door, never mind going and being a peace officer. But that career had a lot of wonderful things in it.
Yes.
But in the recovery period after the law enforcement period, because I did get burned out, I have since visited the Course in Miracles, trying to get through more of it than what I did initially. Initially, I didn't get very far into it. I mean, I didn't go to sleep too much with it. I did understand the language. It did shift my perspectives about things I already knew, pretty much. But since I'd already had enlightening experiences during my life. But subsequently, I moved from Houston to North Carolina and to North Georgia. And I wound up finding out, just with the reading that I just revisited, which I had originally done in '05, and had a workshop with this lady who came out with a book who went through a similar experience to what Helen Schuckman did. And she was scared to death, but she had plenty of help, and she had been a meditator all her life. And when the material that came to her over a period of 2 months finally was, she was being told it had to get put out into a book, finally it was so convincing, she started looking for editors, and there was one that just kept popping up. She put out bids and everything, but one kept popping up. And when she had discussion with that woman from there, the woman went into chills and said, "Oh my gosh." She says, "What you have here is the second Course in Miracles. It's an updated version." And the publisher was the same publisher as the Course in Miracles. So, so the author is, the woman who went through it is Ellie Drew. This is a copy of her book. It's called Partnering with Spirit, Homer's Journey. Homer is the one who helped her to go through it, go through the experiences she had. And it explains a lot about what I had learned in the Course in Miracles in a way that that a lot of people can maybe understand even better.
Well, that's a good input, Cheryl. Thank you. There are lots of books that have been coming out that are also channeled. They're also about the Course, etc. I haven't heard of the one you're talking about. There's one called A Course of Love, and there's a series of books called Conversations with God. They have similar principles in it. They're just not the same as the Course. I personally just, while I honor all of these, I like to read things that are right about the Course and the Course itself. And that's just where I'm coming from, and that's what's at the center of my path, which is what we're studying here in Optimal EFT. So, okay, Cheryl, thank you so much.
Yeah, it just gave a little bit more of a how-to apply it for me that worked.
Gary, I think there are different models that enable people from various perspectives to be able to apply it, where one set of words doesn't mean the right thing, or one way of looking at non-reality doesn't quite make it for them.
And there are different ways of going about this for different people, because we all have different beliefs and different, we hear things differently and all of that. So if that's helpful, fabulous. Okay. All right. Thanks so much, Cheryl. Hold on a second. Dorothea, you had another thing. Go ahead.
I feel kind of not up to the more recent work and discussion here, but back when, in the earlier part of the session, when people were talking about working with MS and in groups and not having success, and I kind of heard that they were looking for ways of framing their request for help or something. And recently it came to me that when I have some issue or some pain or something, I have a little model that I use, and I first bless it and ask healing for it, and then I smile, and I'll tell you why. And then after that, I do 3 deep breaths and then just kind of let it go. And I am quite successful using that model, just a simple thing. And the smile, if you use the letter SMILE, it means starting my internal love engine.
I love it.
That belongs to Chuni Lin, who does Qigong in our area. He's a master of Qigong. Thank you. And wonderful session. Thank you so much, and love to all of you.
Okay. Thanks, Dorothea. Okay. Oh, my good friend Erwin, speak to me.
Hello, hello.
Hello.
Can you see me?
Indeed.
Okay.
One of my favorite things to do is to see Erwin. Go ahead.
Thank you. Okay, then we can get off now. I have a couple of comments and then a question for just to put out. One is, this has been a great webinar. I've learned so much. I can't wait to get off and start trying some of these things out. The other thing is, I've created a reality. My dream is my eyesight and all this stuff. So I found that I bought A Course in Miracles audio. I just went to Amazon, and it's hard to read anyway. And with my eyesight, it was even harder. And when I got the audio, it's just fantastic. All of a sudden, I understand things, and I can hear them over and over again, and I find it really useful. So I just want to put that out for even if you have great eyesight, it might be a useful thing. Yeah.
And some people just lean on their auditory senses more than they do their visual and so on. And it's just so yeah, it is available in audio, and you can play it and replay it and so on. So yeah.
Yeah, the text is 47 hours long.
Well, yes, but one of the things about the Course is that it says the same thing over and over.
Right.
But it comes from different angles and different metaphors and different, different examples and all of that, all to teach some central point. And it does it. It is so brilliant, and yet the points are so simple. Yet we are so ego-driven, belief in separation-driven, that it just takes a chipping away for us finally to gradually go, I see. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. And one thing I say to myself over and over again is one of those lines that I have created this. I've created my own reality. Everything I see, my health, this and that, about every hour I say it. And maybe eventually it'll click in. I ask unseen therapists, please help me understand that. But here's my question. Well, it's just one of the concepts that I realize is a block for me, and it has to do with we are all one. And when I think about it, that's when I have the hazy thing, because, and I'm just putting this out, maybe someone can have, their input, their answers, is that, what does that actually mean? Like, here I am, I'm Erwin, you're Gary, and we're all one. And I've never had that experience. So what does it mean? Does it mean that my identity, let's say we're all one, my identity is just gone, and your identity is gone, and I don't get it. That's the part that I feel is a block to me to understand. Is like, wait a minute, we're all one, that means I'm gone, you're gone. What does it mean?
Well, okay, and that is a subject of about 27 more webinars to begin. Okay. But our egos, when we say we're all one, our egos doesn't even want to hear that, because our egos want to be separate. It is that belief in separation. We believe that is us. You are Erwin, and for you to be anything other than Erwin means poof, you are gone. Okay? But what we're trying to point out, what quantum physics is pointing out, and this whole thing is that perception is a fiction. And one of the parts of that fiction is I don't want to let go of the fiction because I poof out of here. Now, I've had lots of people who have asked me over time, Gary, if I poof out of here, or if I get enlightened, or the top of the spiritual ladder and all of that, what happens to my body? And that's the ego speaking, of course. Okay. So there are places in the Course in Miracles and its related things, which talks about the ability to be in that enlightened state and still be in your body. Okay. You see the world differently in that case. I mean, your body is still there. People still know who you are. You're still somebody's parent and somebody's brother and all of that. And you're here as long as you want to be. Interesting comment. As long as you want to be, because you're not subject to all of the rules of separation, birth, death, disease, and all that other stuff. You're just not subject to it. And you're not subject to pain. You're not subject to pleasure in the way the world sees it either. Okay? You are simply in your body in this blissful state. Your purpose now becomes one of communication, where you can start bringing others along with you, along with us, so that we all go home eventually together. Now I just summarized 1,200 pages, okay? Don't shoot the messenger if you don't buy it all right? Because it's not all there.
May I add something, Gary?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. In this regard, the Course talks about how we feel, I'm giving up everything for nothing. That's what it feels like in the moment. That we're giving up our personal identities and our family and our wonderful jobs, and that's normal. That's how we feel. However, it says there will come a day when you actually think totally opposite that you have given up nothing for everything.
And yes.
And that's an example of our upside down thinking. The Course says our thinking is 180 degrees away from the thinking of God. I can give some assurance, though, that the Course says at such time that we are ready to give up nothing for everything, it won't matter. It'll be just fine. So anyone that's worried about that and what I might have to give up, my family, whatever, at such time that you're at that place of enlightenment where you're ready to take that leap, it'll be fine. It won't matter. You'll be okay with it. So don't worry about it.
Okay.
And you'll come with me, Sherry, right? You'll be there.
Oh, absolutely. We're all one. I have nowhere else to be except with you.
and then you said, and yes, that is the Course's message. That I only wanted to point out for those who are just so terrified of somehow or other letting go of their body, you don't really have to, okay? And it actually is a choice, stay in your body or don't. I mean, that's the way the Course puts it in certain places. So, okay, anything more, Erwin?
That's it.
All right.
Here again.
Thanks. Okay, we have Raman Khan. Oh, there we are. Okay.
Hello.
Did you have a question, Raman?
Yes, Gary, I have a question. I've been doing this optimal EFT for like around 2 months or so. And even before that, I was doing EFT. So my issue with this is when I'm doing optimal EFT, I've seen a lot of your videos about the self-help sessions and all that.
Yes.
I followed through. You use many metaphors and all that, right?
Yes.
So I try to use metaphors, but they seem like I'm creating them. It's not like someone unseen therapist coming and doing it. I feel like I am myself creating it. Or else if I like try to invite someone like an unseen therapist or someone, my mind just goes blank. Nothing comes to my mind.
Okay. All right. And I experienced that myself, and I think others do as well. When you first do this, you know, you're in an area that you're just kind of strange to you. If you've never meditated or anything like that, it's just a new thing. And yes, at the very first part of this, I would invent my own metaphors. Like I would imagine, you know, some emotional thing being a shaking red ball, and then I would imagine a metaphor of cool waterfall coming and turning that red ball into blue or some peaceful color or something like that. Yes, I would do that. I also, as I've said before here, I would invite in Mormon Tabernacle Choir to sing Hallelujah and all that. Yes, I would do that. And I would still get some results, but it's a matter of practice. After a while, I start finding that, yes, I may go into my own metaphors from time to time to sort of set the stage. It's my way of being loving and addressing the problem. But unseen therapist, you know, that's for me, okay? Unseen therapist doesn't need all of that, but it's sort of for me.
The
as time goes on, let me just finish this for a second. As time goes on, I'm finding metaphors just sort of show up now that I didn't start myself. They just sort of show up, and that's more evidence to me that I'm getting messages or help, from the other side. Did you have another thought?
Yes, the way it happened to you, as you're telling, as the time goes on, it improves and the metaphors start appearing. The same thing even happens to me right now. It's on the process. And the difference I noted is when that thing happens, when the metaphors start to appear or they try to change, or I feel like it's not me who's doing that metaphor.
Yes.
Somebody else, I have more effect on me. I feel more at peace.
Okay. Well, yeah, and that would be your experience, and I would imagine that's the experience of many other people because, and this is my way of thinking about it, hearing you, because now you're getting these metaphors, these things coming in. Now you're developing more trust in, this process and inviting in somebody else other than you and your own judgment.
Exactly.
In there.
Yes.
So, and as you see it a little bit at a time. The way I put optimal EFT together, I have some lessons in there. And the very first lesson is just to simply imagine it's a physical thing and bring something in. And I'm not expecting people to get great results to begin with. They're just beginning. If you try it on 5 different things, you're probably going to get some help with 1. But after a while, you keep doing it. Now you get help with 2 out of 5, and then 3 out of 5. And now you start with that practice, I see. And then from that foundation, you build and you see more and more and more, and you get more trust in it. And you develop things like Helen that we had on them here at the beginning have developed herself because she's seen so much of this. She was fortunate to have been pulled into this, at early ages. But I think that's what I'm hearing. Am I correct?
Yes, exactly.
All right.
As we go on, it keeps on improving.
Yeah. Okay.
And I also have one question for Sherry Baker.
Or Sherry, okay?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yes.
Yeah. Hi, Sherry.
Hi.
I've been reading Conversation with God. That's a spiritual book. Even it emphasizes on we all are one. So in that, what I read is the purpose of a human to be in this world is to be experience the best of ourselves, something like that. So what is there in Course of Miracles, what's the purpose of us to be here in this world in Course of Miracles? Is it the same or it's?
Yeah, he's asking if it's the same as what's in Conversations with God.
It's a little different. I think Conversations with God comes from we chose this so we can experience more of ourselves, that
Exactly.
kind of thing. Yes. Course in Miracles would say that we fell asleep to the truth of who we are, and this physical world, this illusion, is a dream. That was the outcome. But it says even though it isn't real, it's an illusion, don't underestimate the benefits of using this as a classroom to awaken to the truth of who you are. So that's what I suggest that we all do. Since we're here, we all have an ego, so we're here. Just every day, our experiences that we have and the relationships we have, if we could go into every one as a lesson to learn more about who we are. And the Course says we are here. Our purpose is to remember who we are. And we will remember who we are by releasing who we are not. And so we come into contact with people that reflect back to us, that mirror back to us things that we don't necessarily like about ourselves, who we are not. And it gives us the opportunity to bring it up, to look at it, and to make a better choice. I think that's what the Course would say is the reason we're here.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right, thanks, Raman. Thanks, Sherry.
You're welcome.
Go ahead, Diane.
Okay, so my question is for the very nice lady with a British accent.
Helen.
And I must admit that I'm not very familiar with optimal EFT. I'm familiar with the notion that we are one. Because I've been busy with meditation and the universe, quantum physics for about 3 or 4 years. And I have a couple of physical ailments that have been bothering me for some years now. One in particular, my stomach, it's about 32 years now. And even though I'm not familiar with EFT, my background is Catholic. So I've been brought up with a firm belief that there is a God, and there was no choice. I just had to believe it. And for some reason, I still have that notion. I haven't let go of it. So my question to Helen is, I have asked, well, I didn't term him or her as the unseen therapist. I termed my helper as Jesus. And I have asked for them to heal me from my stomach, from my ailments, which are really bring me down. And somehow I'm blocking it. How do I? And I know I'm blocking it. I know that my frustration and anger is blocking that healing. Do you have any suggestions to at least help me unblock the blocking? I don't know if I'm making any sense.
Go ahead, Helen. Helen, are you there? Well, apparently Helen's not there, or she didn't hear it. But let me respond, if I may.
Yes, of course.
As I mentioned earlier, there are some impediments to this process working beautifully, and they really have to do with the belief in separation. The belief in separation of the therapist, the belief in separation of the client. In this case, you're the client, you're your own therapist, and so on. Okay. So, the thing to do is to keep practicing it. I mean, if I were you, I would bring in unseen therapists for the symptom first. Apparently, you've tried to do that and you've gotten no results. Am I correct?
Correct.
Okay.
The buzzing in my ears. I have a constant buzzing in my ears.
Okay. That also would be a symptom. The buzzing in your ears is a symptom. The ailment in the stomach is a symptom, etc. Okay. Now, from an optimal EFT point of view, your guard at the gate, your belief in separation, and it's a metaphor, okay? So it's a way of looking at it, is hiding this from the unseen therapist. So the unseen therapist really can't deal with something we want to hide. So what we do is we try to unhide that and put it on the table. The way I do that, and the way EFT goes about that, is to look for specific events in your life that contribute to that. For example, you might ask yourself, when did the stomach ailments first start? As an example. Well, maybe they started 10 or 15 years ago. I'm guessing that. Okay, around that time or sometime before that time, where there's some emotional issues really going on around there. Well, yes, I got a divorce, or my boyfriend dumped me, or I lost my job, or I felt guilty because I did, whatever it might be. You start looking at specific events that are unresolved, emotional issues, and then you're getting down to a level of cause. You bring in unseen therapists to unravel those emotional contributors to the stomach ailment and to the buzzing in the ears. And you keep doing that and keep doing that and keep doing that, and you're likely to start getting results because you're getting closer and closer to cause. Did that help?
Yes, thank you.
I got a thumbs up. Okay, great. All right, let me see. One more, and that will be Hank, and then we'll be done. Go ahead, Hank.
Hi, Gary.
Hi.
I sent you a few weeks ago a mail by asking you, when looking to the videos of Mercia. From when you suppose there's no time and no place, and we all one at the same moment, looking to the video and participating in the video, then you would suspect that there is an immense effect on the healing of her in her issues.
You would expect, say it again, you would expect a what?
Yeah, when there's a lot of people doing the same work at the same moment, the effect is mostly greater than when you do it in the video. Is correct?
That would be one of our suspicions, yes, and there's evidence for that. I don't know that I can absolutely say that because we don't have enough experience yet, but yes, there's certainly evidence for that.
Yeah, I reconnected from, I recognize that from working with energy work. When you are with more people, the energy work is more intense. So I was wondering when people look to the videos and work along with the video, you should suspect that because there's no time, there's a lot of people at the same moment working with that video at the same moment, joining all their energies, joining all their intensity in the sessions.
Yes.
You should suspect a lot of effect at that moment. Can you remember my mail?
Generally, yes. I do remember that. And the effect that goes on, and yes, there's no time, there's no space, and lots of people have reported to me that they've done things along with our webinars, along with the Marcia series, which we have on our blog, and so on. And they are getting results themselves. Does that also give Marcia more results? I don't know. I haven't asked her. But if it doesn't give her more results, that's because her guard at the gate is still hiding little pieces, okay? So it's hard to know exactly what all that is, but your comments are very well taken, and I think there's a lot to it. We just don't have enough evidence yet to really point out that that's precisely what's happening. Do you have more?
No, it was wondering. It was an observation of working when I worked with the videos that I wondered about these effects, because you know when I watched the video, when I worked with the video, and it's 2, 3, 4 months later, I was wondering if she still experienced effects from all those people working along with the videos.
I can only tell you probably, but it would probably be subtle and you wouldn't notice it. But let me ask you, as you were working along with the Marcia series, were you gaining benefits for yourself?
Yeah, that's the reason I did it.
Okay. And so that's the interesting point about it, because see, Marcia, her physical ailment is adrenal fatigue, yet her issues are the same as yours and mine. There are specific events, they are emotional issues, and beneath that is even the belief in separation. And so while she and I are dealing on that, you are borrowing from it because you have the same issues. It's just got different details and different labels around it. Yes?
Yes. Yeah, I understand.
Yeah. Okay, great.
Yeah.
All right, everyone. It's been a little over 2 hours. It's time to wrap it up. So let me mention something to you. Those of you who want to contact, let's say, Sherry and talk about her tapping into truth, etc., you will find it on our website, sherrybaker.com. And Sherry is S-H-E-R-I, Baker, sherrybaker.com. And if you want to get a hold of Helen, you can just put Helen Bressler into Google and you'll find her, Helen Bressler, B-R-E-S-S-L-E-R. And for Gabrielle, you can put in Gabrielle, G-A-B-R-I-E-L-L-E, Rutten, R-U-T-T-N, space EFT. I did it this morning. And there will be Gabrielle, okay? So anyway, I hope that helps you all. A big hug to everybody. I'll see you in 2 weeks.